Holiday special. Heidi-ho there, pal.
Ahoy, to-toy, to-tum, to-tay.
To-tum, to-tay.
Today is a very special day.
You know who I love a lot?
Oh, what's that?
He's that Shakespeare fella.
Oh, yes.
He has some good... He's got some bangers.
Quite. Yes, I call them all bangers.
He's got some bangers that, like Hamlet...
Was he the one who did this one? The Leprechaun 4 in space?
Yeah, and here is actually the one where he was like, well, why don't we put him in space, like? And then everyone looked at the Bard and they're like, what are you doing, Bard? And his name was Bart.
Bart?
Yeah, but they were saying Bard in Irish. Hi!
Heyo, it's me, Isaac.
It's me, Derek.
Welcome to our special holiday episode. Yeah, we're here watching a movie specifically tributed to St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, dude.
Very, very green day. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a decently popular horror series called, just based off of a leprechaun.
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 Mm-hmm.
So we decided we would watch one of those in the spirit of the holiday.
Here's the thing, though. Neither of us have ever seen a Leprechaun
None
movie.
of them. And you know what? We did not decide to go the route we've gone in the past where it's like, oh, let's watch them leading up to whichever one we choose. Because, spoiler alert, we ended up choosing the fourth one.
Yeah, for real.
Because it just seemed the most interesting of them all. And I thought it'd be a fun idea if we just went in absolutely blind. We knew nothing about it.
We didn't watch any
trailers. Watch a trailer, nothing.
Nope, we just leaped in.
And you know what? It was a great experience because of that, because we were lost.
It was an experience. I'll
in
give you
some ways, yeah. And it was very fun to see like how much of this is stuff we should have learned in the past and how much of that would have been necessary at all. Spoiler alert, I don't feel like I missed a lot.
Yeah, I don't really feel like I missed anything either. Kind of. I don't know. Well, we'll get into the plot in a second, but it definitely was like falling into the middle of a book. But, like, you didn't need to have read the first half of the book.
Yeah, exactly. They're not quite connected enough for it to matter that much.
But I definitely think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. It feels like I might have understood Leprechaun more had I watched the earlier ones. But yeah, so we basically picked this one because we're like, hey, why don't we have holiday specials?
Yeah.
Like, holiday-themed movies. That's a great idea. There's a lot of
our first of hopefully a couple.
I mean, how many holidays are there? 12?
Yeah, there's a
One
couple.
per month?
At the very least, we know there are many Leprechaun movies.
Yes.
So if all else fails, we at least have a couple Leprechaun specials under our belt.
Yeah. So this basically went, we sat down, we were like, let's pick one. We had heard Leprechaun 3 was pretty bad, but then we were reading the titles, and this one said in space.
Yeah, because the Leprechaun titles go Leprechaun 1, 2, 3, but then 4, they start the subtitles. Yep. So yeah, we saw Leprechaun 4 in space, and we just had to jump on that one.
It was dead on arrival, right? We knew we had to watch Leprechaun 4.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we did.
Yeah, tell me a bit about this.
Let's talk about it.
What's it sitting on the rating scale?
So, well, first, the tagline is one small step for man, one giant leap for terror.
More like one giant leprechaun for terror. Ay.
Oh, sorry, I should probably say it in this voice. One small step for man, one giant leap for terror.
Yep, you keep it going.
All right, so the Rotten Tomatoes is sitting at 17 for the critics. The audience score is at 21. You've got IMDb sitting at a 3.5, and Letterboxd is sitting at a 1.8. So this film had a $1.6 million budget.
Did it really?
Sure did.
Wow.
Didn't show, but it sure did. And then it grossed $3 million. So
wow.
it made money. It is based on characters by Mark Jones. He's the one who created the Leprechaun. He was not involved in the writing of this movie, though. It was just based on his characters. But he wrote...
Probably for the best.
Yes. He wrote a bunch of random TV shows that, like... he wrote unique characters for TV shows.
Oh, okay.
So he wrote Mega Man TV show stuff. Turbo Teen was one of them.
Teen.
Plastic Man. But the one I really need to watch is Rubik, the Amazing Cube.
Rubik the Amazing Cube.
That
sounds
TV
astounding.
Show about the Rubik's Cube. And anyway, I really need to watch that.
Incredible.
It was directed by Brian Trenchard Smith. He has 62 directing credits, actually, which is one of the more fluent directors.
Yeah, that's a lot.
He did write Leprechaun 3 and Leprechaun 4, but that was it. Directed. He also, amongst his many movies, he did Atomic Dog and Tyrannosaurus Azteca. And you can't miss Doomsday Rock.
Doomsday Rock.
Which I think
they call that an asteroid. I think is the name of that.
See, but I took rock as like rock and roll. So it's like rocking around the Doomsday Rock on the Doomsday Rock tonight, you know?
That's something, yeah.
It's beautiful, right? Okay, and then so there was one other writer credited. It's Dennis Pratt. He's mostly an actor, but he did write some cheesy stuff. So that's that. So Isaac, what were your expectations for this Leprechaun-fueled movie?
From the top, I was like, we're only doing this because we're doing a special. It's not because I'm very excited to watch this. So my very first expectation just says regret. So there's regret. There is much respect for Warwick Davis and his work. I was like, he's gonna be great in this movie. I can already tell clearly because it's him throughout all of them, right?
He plays the Leprechaun.
Yes, he is the titular Leprechaun. I thought it would be the dumbest reason for being in space.
Yes,
I was like, I feel like it's gonna be a huge stretch. It's not gonna make sense. Why are we in space? It's not gonna work. I just wrote green blood, question mark, because I was really hoping this leprechaun would bleed green. I wrote shitty effects just across the board. I did not have high expectations for any effects, be it practical or CG. All of it would be bad. And then I was also thinking maybe I'd walk away with a new fear of leprechauns and space. Either or, we'll see if it can elicit any fear reaction out of me.
We'll see when we get to the end.
What about you?
So Warwick Davis kicking some ass.
Always,
was my first one.
Yes. Mans is great.
And I had some similar. I also thought about space, but I was like, I think that the way that they get to space is going to be weird because again, we had no context. We didn't know where this was starting or anything.
Yep.
So like, I was like, oh, they're going to get weird ways to get in space. Like Leprechaun's going to shoot into space or something. And then I just wrote kills question mark because I didn't know what I was in for. Like, are they going to kill people? But my biggest expectation, I really wanted someone to say the line, "Lepra, can't you see? We're in space."
Like right as we started the movie, Derek goes, "I Lepra can't wait." Which I was excited about. Then I found out he pre-wrote that bit.
It's funny.
All his comedy is scripted, everyone. He's reading it to you right now.
So there aren't a lot of reviews to read from this movie, but a couple of them. This one is by Tim Brayton from Antagony and Ecstasy, who says, "Singularly unlovely and weird piece of cinematic detritus."
Yeah.
And then Ken Hank also said, "Do you really need to know more than the title?"
Honestly, though, you've basically seen the whole movie once you've got the title. So, shall we dive into this movie?
They're after me Lucky Charms, and the Lucky Charms are in space.
Leprechaun tweet. So Derek missed it right away because we don't know how or why they are in space.
Nope.
It just starts right out the gate. They are in space. We got some like MS Paint looking asteroids.
Oh my goodness.
We're talking like the CGI graphics level is like below PlayStation.
It is
below
so
PlayStation
bad.
1.
And
the polygons were huge.
They were gigantic.
Enormous.
And keep in mind, this movie came out in 1996, right?
1996. Yeah.
Movies like Alien and Jurassic Park, movies that have fantastic CGI and effects. They exist.
They've already done it and done it well. So
and you had
the standard is there.
$1.6 million budget. Put some of that towards the effects. Unless all of that was going to Warwick Davis, in which case, like,
understandable. That makes sense.
But, yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so we get a look at the asteroids in space, and then we see this gigantic spaceship. And you're like, okay, there has to be a whole civilization living on this thing. There is a team of Marines about 8 people deep.
It was 8.
Taking up
like
this entire space vessel.
Almost 8 people.
And their mission, it seems like they're gearing up for, is literally just to go kill this leprechaun.
Yep.
So I assume, he's made it through 3 movies now. He's a menace. He's up in space. We never learn why. Maybe there's something that happens in the end of Leprechaun 3 where he shoots up into space. Maybe that's all we're missing.
I want to see that. I do want to know. Have to wait till next March, I guess.
But beyond that, we have no idea why the leprechaun is in space, why any of that is happening. But yeah, so we gotta look at our team here, our Marines team.
Oh my goodness. And I'm gonna be honest, I remember like sprinkles of names. We watched this like a couple hours ago, and I've already forgotten most of their names because they're like super, super generic.
Super generic, unimportant.
They're just like, They're big, gruff Marines. They aren't scared of death. Death is scared of them kind of trope.
Yeah.
They're gross. They are super misogynistic towards women. There's one female Marine who gets hit on by all the men.
It's got that typical, like, Marine hoorah, like, attitude between all of them, which I hate. It just makes me hate groups of men in general.
Groups of men are gross. It really doesn't matter that they're in the armory or anything. They're just gross men at this point, which is unfortunate.
One of them, I know for a fact, was in the Scooby-Doo live-action movie as, like, one of, like, the voodoo guys who was on the island, and I swear we've mentioned that before. I want to find where that is, but, like, he's great, and he's back in it again. I was actually surprised that, like, while the CG looked, like, god-awful.
It was so bad.
It was so bad. Like, the sets were, like, surprisingly, like, believable. They looked like they were in a good sci-fi setting. There was one that's coming up, we'll talk about in a second, that was just garbage.
Horrible.
But, like, the actual space vessel and all the locations there, and that look convincing enough.
The interior of the ship was good. And you can tell that most of their budget went to that.
Yeah.
Because it's the main place in the movie, so.
Yeah, their main Marine guy has, like, the one in charge of them all, he's got this, like, metallic dome plate covering like a quarter of his skull. That actually shocked me right away. I'm like, okay, so your CG sucks, but the practical effects, like the makeup on this guy, that was all we'd seen so far. I had nothing to base it off of. Like from there, I'm like, that's actually pretty decent. I actually liked the look of it too. It had this like really chromy shine to it that reflected really well and like looked good in his head.
It looked like it was like, I really liked the way the skin flaps like go over the metal.
They kind of folded over it a little bit.
If you follow us on social media, I'll post a picture of it when the episode go live, and you go look at that because it was really, really cool how the skin like went over the.
Yeah, so it was a pretty good look. But I wrote here, I'm like, I'm glad I know nothing. I'm glad I'm going into this blind because I feel like it was a lot more fun.
I was feeling the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. We meet our main protagonist girl. And I wrote, you can tell she's the protagonist because she's got these really wild eyebrows that are just like constantly in this like very surprised arch look. It is simultaneously like surprised and also like shocked or no, like angry. She's like both at the same time. And you can already tell there's like going to be some weird forced romance between her and this one guy. They don't know that she's there. That's what doesn't make sense.
No, they're already in the middle of space. They've been traveling for a while. They're reaching their destination when the movie begins. And she appears out of nowhere and like, who are you? What are you doing here?
She's like, well, I'm the doctor. I'm on board. I have a job to be doing here. Yeah, and like nobody on the ship knows who she is. I'm like, there's only like 8 of you guys here. You had to go through some kind of protocols to even board this ship. Like you have to know she's here. And also, it's a trek through space. That's more than a couple days of travel, right? Like I don't know how far they are from Earth, but it's like there's a long time you guys have been on this. There's no way you were just finding out this girl is on this ship. So then the main like Chrome Dome Sarge dude is kind of angry. So he turns like to basically the dude who hired them for this mission. And then we meet this mad scientist who is just nuts. He looks terrifying. The camera angle on him should be a crime. It's like from beneath his chin at a slight upward angle. He looks like if a turkey giblet was a person. He's like completely like smooth, bald guy and just constantly looking at the camera from this downward angle. He's terrifying. He sounds crazy. He's got this weird German accent. And he's basically like, no, she's supposed to be there. Do your job.
It's like the Wario version of an Austin Powers character played by Mike Myers. Like if he literally had like a reverse version of himself that was just still kind of gross, but not quite him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was wild.
So they're basically like, oh, we have to babysit this doctor lady. So then he gives the main, like, who's going to be the love interest, obviously. It's all right, you're in charge of taking care of her. There's a scene that happens where he's, like, trying to equip this, like, armored vest on her. And the shuttle, like, shakes and he, like, lands on top of her. And there's that moment. Yeah, there's that. Where it's like, oh, you fell on me. Wow. I'm like, I already hate this romance from the get-go. Like, this is going to be forced on me. The two of them do not seem compatible already.
Nope.
And it's kind of one of those, like, oh, they hate each other, but they're going to love each other later kind of things that I hated.
So then he basically is like, okay, we're on this war. And he makes it seem like it's a huge war, like a big battle.
There's one guy.
It's one dude, like a little short man. And so they have like this big, talk and everyone's motivated and they're like, yeah. And then they pray.
They
prayed.
And one of them is literally like,
beautiful.
Is like, oh, I feel good now. I feel ready for this.
I feel ready.
He says something like that immediately afterwards, right?
It's like he's just completely calm, which like, hey, good on you.
Speaking of which, when they do this scene, when they do the bit of praying, engraved on the walls is definitely 100% the Millennium Falcon.
Absolutely. We paused and rewind and paused.
Yeah. It even has the same effect. Like, it kind of looks like it was like frozen in carbonite, like in Star Wars. Like, it's not subtle at all. I don't know how or why they did that. It's never brought up later on. But in that same vein, we cut out of the spaceship to find where the Leprechaun is.
Yep.
He's in a cave with this woman chained up, dressed almost exactly like Princess Leia when she was enslaved by Jabba the Hutt.
All of us watching it, we're just like, oh, so Princess Leia's here.
Yeah.
So we continued to do Jabba the Hutt impressions.
Exactly. They were
hilarity
fantastic.
ensued.
Yeah. We'll release bonus content episodes later in the future, giving you all of our great Jabba the Hutt impressions.
Yeah, at least an hour.
But then the wonderful Warwick Davis walks in as the Leprechaun, and he's not in a Leprechaun suit.
No,
he's in like a tuxedo.
He's so cute. I love him so much.
And it's cool by me. I'm fine with
I wanted
it.
him to stay in that the whole movie.
And
Spoilers,
he's great.
he doesn't.
Right away, I'm in it for
Yeah.
him. He's gonna make this movie for me, I can guarantee. And it's like, so this girl looks humanoid enough. She's got some interesting kind of like makeup, not like prosthetic kind of makeup, just like really just pretty like angular designs on it. I'm like, is she supposed to be an alien? Because I can't really tell.
I can't tell. And then he's like makes a table. Right off the bat, it establishes that he's got these super magic powers. I'm sure that's something from the previous movies, but we didn't know.
Yeah, so he's got powers.
Yeah, he makes up a table. He releases her from her locks on the wall. He's like, "You're gonna be my bride. I'm gonna make you my wife." But they've both kind of got this like weird, like, we're using the other person energy.
Yeah, because he starts to show her gold, and she's like, "Oh wait, my dad's poor. I want gold."
Yeah, gold.
And so suddenly she's like kind of into him.
It was such a flip.
It was a pretty quick flip.
I do want to make a note of something. There was a drink on the table, and it was green. It was green juice, just like an American Paris werewolf in Paris.
Close enough, yeah.
There's green juice, just like there was at that party. So it's the second movie with green juice, and I would like more movies.
We're gonna keep a green
please.
juice tracker now. See how many horror movies and how many bad horror movies all have green juice. There's somewhere within it.
There's something spooky about green Jello.
There's something about it. Green juice
is
is sketchy. There's some going on with it.
So my next 10 notes, I won't read them, but they're all about the graphics, because the freaking cave that they're in. Isaac, give me the description you give them the description you gave
So
me.
they're walking into this place where like the Leprechaun has the alien princess we've discovered like chained up, right? And he's kind of trying to convince her to marry him. So they find his location somehow. They're walking through. It looks like the same set used like 5 different times at different camera angles walking through it, and the cave walls, they look like they just crumpled up blankets on the wall and hardened them to make a cave. Just like a crusty blanket cave.
So gross.
It is so weird. And like even before that, there were also weird effects when like, this is the only time the movie ever looks like this, but that when they land on the planet and they're going into the cave, there's like this purple lightning that comes through.
Yeah,
which was
so
simultaneously
weird.
like the best idea and the worst idea. It made everything look like it was like a Hanna-Barbera like poster.
Oh, absolutely.
It was so much. It just kind of didn't fit the vibe of the rest of it. I was like, it either needs to continue in this vein or get off this train, because it was very strange.
Yep.
But yeah, the CG, I mean, like, it came out in 96. Why is it so bad looking, right?
Really though.
But yeah, so the effects pretty rough in there.
So he tells her he has all this gold, right? And everyone has like inner monologues with themselves out loud. And so she turns and she's like, being a princess and having nothing to wear? People treating me as if I was common? Gold is power.
She is bizarre. Her motivations are strange. There's a moment where he mentions his wife, which he never mentions again.
Oh, wait, yeah!
He mentions his wife once and she goes, "Your wife?" And she gets all offended, but it's clear that she doesn't want to get with him, so why is she offended by this?
War Wife Davis.
War Wife Davis. How many war something puns can we make just in this episode?
I hope more.
There are quite a few. While they're going through the cave systems, there is one creature that hops up and like tries to get them.
Again, I completely forgot about this.
It's the only use of like another like alien species that is here that comes up. It is that one bit, and it looks like it could have been cool, but it was such a fast shot, and the design of the creature was so messy that I couldn't even tell what it was.
It looked like a decrepit Rizzo the Rat.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like puffy, and it didn't look very good. It didn't read very well. And so it's there for one shot. It cuts back to the Leprechaun for a second. Then it's back, and the army people, the Marines, have killed it already. It's just a crumpled pile of guts there. Like, okay, cool. Guess that's fun. Thanks for showing me that creature for absolutely no reason, just filling time.
No reason. I feel like they just had like extra money that they should have spent on the special effect.
Really
and they're like, look, we have this animal. Let's kill it.
So our very first kill of the movie is when one of the Marine dudes comes, he finds the table that was left behind, because the Leprechaun's like, oh shoot, they're coming, right? So we're going to get out of here. So he leaves this table. First of all, in his tux, he had set up this very nice table with like this like cloth over it, candles. He's got all this gold sitting on it. So he starts to like scoop all this gold into his helmet. He's trying to steal a bunch of it. And then from behind him comes the Leprechaun, pulls out this little baton from wherever.
It's like the top of a cane.
Yeah, and then he clicks a button, and it's a lightsaber.
It's a green lightsaber.
It has a lightsaber cane.
So if there wasn't enough Star Wars at this point,
it
is officially just a Star Wars movie.
So yeah, he gets a pretty evil kill on him. He sneaks up from behind, cuts off both legs. I think one at a time, like chop one leg, chop the other leg.
It took some chopping.
Final swipe.
Yeah,
which is funny because they find him later and it leaves him in like a bloody mess. I'm like, wouldn't a lightsaber like cauterize that wound? I don't think you would bleed from a lightsaber. You don't see blood in Star Wars.
Leprosy.
Who knows what it is? So yeah, first the Leprechaun has a lightsaber, which is absolutely insane. But then he steals the guy's gun as well.
Yeah.
And first of all, I'm like, great, the Leprechaun has a gun now. And second of all, isn't a lightsaber more powerful than a gun?
Also, he has magic powers. Why couldn't you make a gun appear? You're basically a walking 3D printer.
I feel like both the audience and the Leprechaun are constantly going in and out of remembering that he has these powers.
Absolutely.
Which just seem limitless. Like throughout this movie, he does some of the craziest things, and then other times he takes a very practical route where I'm like, you have godlike powers that you were choosing not to use, which we can get into later. But yeah, now he has a gun. and I wrote a note from here. I'm like, literally, where can this movie go? They have nothing in their power to be able to stop this godlike being, and he's just going to mess with them.
So what happens, though?
They have a really lame gunfight.
I wrote, worst gunfight in the history of man.
They make sounds like they're space blasters, but they just look like regular guns.
No, and you could tell the actors are just kind of sitting there holding the guns, because sometimes what would happen is they would like move the gun like they were shooting it, but the bullet wouldn't come out. And it would just be them holding the gun and moving it.
Yeah, so then they have a really lame gunfight, and then one of the Marines throws a grenade, and the princess walks into the room. I don't know where she was, but she walks in behind the Leprechaun. It's like, oh no, you have to get out of the way. And then he's a hero.
Yeah, dude.
And he jumps on the grenade to protect his like new queen,
and
who has basically agreed to join him and blah blah. He's gonna give her gold, whatever. So he jumps on her grenade, and then he gets exploded so crazy
in a million pieces.
It's so insane.
And I wrote, Lepra dead at 14 minutes.
Lepra dead at 14 minutes. We've already seen the Leprechaun exploded.
So the Marines are all cheering and they're triumphant and they're freaking out. And what do?
He says, here, take some pure Rocky Mountain spring water and pisses on his corpse.
Yep.
Onto the dead Leprechaun.
Which... There's a few times this is used in the movie, but it's just like a little prosthetic of his foot that he's peeing on.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there. So while he's peeing, though, there's some weird energy going on, man. And the like pee stream gets kind of possessed by this like weird electricity, and it goes into this
green light that goes upwards, right? It kind of looks like the effects look worse than like Tron. At least Tron is charming, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it had a purpose. It knew what it was doing.
Yeah, exactly. So they basically are like, okay, well, guess he's dead. And then the princess is with them. So they're like, well, she's innocent. We should take her with us and try to protect her, you know? So they leave with, no, they didn't take the corpse. They took the princess's body.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they leave. They're like, job well done, fellas. We've done it. And then we get another shot of the spaceship again. Too huge. Looks terrible.
Way too big.
The effects look like they were from like that Eiffel 65 Blue music video. The Blue Dabba song.
Yeah.
It looked like that.
But worse.
Honestly.
The ship kind of looked like, do you know the gummy ships from Kingdom Hearts? Yeah. It kind of looked like a really, really low resolution version of that.
And At this point, the plot is moving in such a weird direction. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. It reminds me of this one terrible shirt I bought online that's a knockoff of the Alien TV, like, poster. And instead of saying Alien, it says Alan. And the quote says, in space, no one can hear you in space. And that's kind of just what I thought. That's the vibe of this movie.
That's the vibe of this movie. I love it.
So now we're on the ship and we see like kind of like their medical bay area where they're taking care of the princess lady. And they've got this perfect space tech and she's wrapped up in bubble wrap.
Yeah, like a full sheet of bubble wrap too. It is like a full blanket on her.
Yeah, and it's hilarious. And then the doctor lady who they didn't know was on the ship starts talking about how like, oh, she's the princess of this race. This will be really great for like connections between that planet and Earth. You know, if we heal her to being well. I'm like, how many of the previous movies set up this space travel narrative and these planets or anything? Because it seems like it had been established and they were just kind of talking about it. I'm like, okay, cool. So she's important, right? And then one of the I think it's the Marine that the doctor lady is going to end up with touches the male doctor who's in the room once, and he says, "Don't touch me unless you mean it, cowboy." Like, okay, awesome. We got this great fruity doctor.
Oh, it's great. So I started making a counter of how many times the metalhead guy would say, "Hurry up, dickhead." He only actually said it twice. I was really disappointed he was going to say it more.
Yeah, a counter kind of wasted there.
Yeah, but that's okay.
In that room, they also the guy that she's supposed to end up with, he says strip to her.
Oh, right.
And she's like, "Excuse me?" And Derek said that like right before her too. He was like, What did you just say?
Please, no.
He's like, "No, I need your armored vest that I gave you." I'm like, dude, saying strip is not the best way to get a person who already doesn't like you to take off their vest, right? It's just so bizarre. I really hate it. It's like one girl with a bunch of shitty men, and they're just the worst. We get another look at the giblet scientist dude again. His name is Mittenhand. Dr. Mittenhand.
So the way that we see him, though, is like it's a TV, and then you only see like double chin up.
Yeah, like neck double chin up.
Yeah,
they just found the most insane looking
icky
man to play this role.
Yep,
and every time he comes on screen, I'm like, why is he here? I hate him. Please get rid of him.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So we're done there, and then we jump to the bar.
The space station has a club.
It's a full club.
Then why do they need a club?
There's 8 people.
There's like 8 of you. Why do you need to socialize that way? It's so weird.
They should have taken a smaller ship because they're going after one leprechaun.
Yeah, honestly, they added a club just because they're like, well, we got so much room. I don't know what to put on here. You guys want to have a club?
Probably
I guess
a full
so.
swimming pool.
There's not like a
gym.
DJ or anything. It's just all of them chilling in a very empty-looking club, too. Like, the space was too big even for the small group of people that was there.
It felt like in like Mass Effect when you would like walk into a club or something, but instead of having people there and characters and cool things, it was empty.
Yeah,
and there were just some drunk
awkward
guys.
There were like 2 guys dancing on the dance floor, and they just should not be dancing. Nope. And then the rest of them are like sitting at the table. But there's like one of the dudes and the one Marine girl are like all grinding up on each other. They decide they're going to get out of here, right?
Oh, but what if they see us leave? Oh no. What will they think?
It's okay. They're occupied anyway. Yeah. And so then they leave and then they make their disappearance even more known to them. Like I think the girl like squeezes her boobs at them.
She literally does.
As she's leaving the room.
I was so confused about that. One of the guys is like, "Hey, you need a ride?" I'm like, "What? Why?
Yeah.
Why do these lines
It's so strange. What's hilarious to me is that they live on this ship. They have to have living quarters. And instead, they go through the hallway to, like, the waste disposal.
Yep.
Like, do you not have any better place to do this? Could you really not make it to your bedroom?
They are so horny. They can't walk to their bedrooms.
Yeah.
They have to go to the waste disposal.
Have to do it. And
why?
This is the guy that peed on the dead leprechaun who had the thing go back up into him. So, like, the girl's trying to reach down his pants and he's really sensitive. He's like, ow, stop. She's like, I haven't done anything yet. And then he, like, bends down in pain. And I literally wrote, I said, please let there be a leprechaun in his pants. Yeah. It's all I want. It's Christmas. Please. It's a holiday. Give it to me, please.
We were leaning forward like... I've never been on the edge of my seat so much, hoping there was a leprechaun in this man's pants. Like, he was just, and what do you know?
what do you know? We get War
Dick
Davis. War Dick Davis in what feels like it must be like an Alien spoof, because he lays down on the ground against the wall and it's like bursting up from his crotch,
like a chest burster from
and
Alien.
then through it here comes the Leprechaun, fully clothed.
Yep,
just happy to be there.
But he's in his green Leprechaun outfit now.
Yeah, he's in the regular Leprechaun attire, as he should be, and it was everything I had ever wanted.
And then what happens? He comes out and he says, "Let that be a lesson to you. Always wear a prosthetic."
It's just...
Oh, wait, no. A prophylactic?
Yeah.
Also, what was that accent?
I don't know. It's not quite the Irish guy.
Let that be a lesson to you. Always wear a prophylactic.
But so now we're like, okay, so now I understand where the movie's going to be going. It's going to be similar to Alien, right? Where it's like they are stuck on board this ship with the entity, right? With the big bad. And right out the gate, man is giving us some great impressions, one-liners.
He pulls out a Leprechaun Wayne
Immediately
impression.
a Leprechaun Wayne. And he goes, "I'm not gonna hurt you." And then I think the girl lets her guard down for a second and goes, I think he like shoots her with something. He goes, "The hell I'm not." Yeah. He's a stone cold killer and I love him. He's my son and you can't touch him.
He's beautiful. I want to watch the rest of the movies just because I need more Warwick Davis.
So he basically, I think the dude whose like crotch he came out of is dead at this point. The girl runs off and she's scared of him. And then like the Leprechaun has like a random like soliloquy to himself, kind of talking about his plan and like what he's going to do. So
Shakespearean. It's
I know.
insane.
I'm like, honestly, give me more of Warwick Davis Leprechaun soliloquies. Yep. I am so into it. Then we go back to the bar where the guy is trying to flirt with a girl. He's just like this dumb mansplainer who's not charming at all.
It's icky. But then after that, we jump to back into the medical lab.
Oh yeah.
And Isaac's favorite scene in the movie happens. So the creepy like doctor, he's crying. The doctor's assistant guy, the one who was like hitting on that the marine earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like touching and feeling this woman that's on the table.
He starts at her toes.
And yeah, I just wrote, toes.
I know, I really hated it. And he starts working his way up.
Oh, it's so nasty.
And then he gets interrupted by Mitten Hand.
Yep.
Who is watching a decent amount of it. It's like, oh, you're a naughty boy.
Naughty boy.
It's so weird. We see a terrible angle of Mitten Hand and... Oh, I hated it so much.
It's so icky.
So from here, we start getting this separate plot of like the doctor and Mitten Hand and what they're gonna do with the alien's blood. Yep. They basically start like running experiments with it that slowly diverges into like this movie takes a fork where it really feels like there are two separate movies going on at once.
It's
and you're going between sets of these movies basically, right?
Yeah.
So while that's happening, we go back to so the girl who was with War Dick Davis, she runs back in. She goes, "It's alive!" I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on. Some of these references are a little on the nose.
Yeah.
But so they're kind of like gearing up to go find this guy, right? And the guy who's not so charming, trying to flirt with the girls, trying to talk to her about how like you don't even know how to like use a gun. And she's like, "Oh, it's okay. I know karate. I don't need to know a gun." I'm like, why does this happen in every movie where it's like if a girl is not trained in like using some kind of like artillery or something, the immediate back thing she's got in her pocket is like, "Oh, I know karate."
Yeah,
and everything's fine.
Kicking.
Kicking. All karate is kicking, according to movies.
Yeah, I wrote that she's more than just a brain and a pretty face, baby. She doesn't say that, but it was very much that energy.
It really feels that way. So yeah, they find out he's in the like the waste disposal area.
Which
right?
How did they find that out?
I don't know. I have no idea
it.
why they're like, "Oh yeah, he's in here." And like they immediately jumped to like the hardest location to get into because they have to put on hazmat suits. They have to go through an airlock because apparently there's flesh-eating bacteria in there.
Which you may be wondering yourself, why would they keep flesh-eating
What's
bacteria?
in their poop?
They address this plot hole. I don't know why, but it's not a plot hole anymore. They're like, oh yeah, we take all of our waste and then we attach flesh-eating bacteria on it on purpose to destroy the fecal matter.
Yeah, it's nuts. And it feels like well thought out, I guess, but very unnecessary.
But like, why?
I really feel like it was all just to set up an interesting location for them to like have a scene with the leprechaun, right? Mm-hmm. Because then they gear up and it's two of them. They get in their hazmat suits and they go into the bay, like the waste disposal area, right? And it's so funny because they gave the Leprechaun a little hazmat suit.
I wrote little boy decontamination.
He will do anything for the bit.
Literally.
It's like, was that necessary? Does he actually need that? Because probably not. Given his powers that he has, he probably just like...
He already looks fucked up as it is.
Anything he does is just for the bit. And that's what I really love about him and his like seemingly limitless powers that he has. Is like, he could probably do some crazy stuff. He could probably wipe out this whole space station in like one like snap, you know, if he wanted to. Swoop. But he does things to a point where it just antagonizes people to the 10th degree, right? Like he just does everything to mess with them. It's perfect for like the Leprechaun character, right? They're tricksy and annoying.
I love it. It's
so
great.
It works for him so well.
And we were like, oh, he's gonna pop some holes. We're gonna see some fucked up faces.
We see some fucked up faces in the scene where, like, the sets do make it a bit more interesting. I feel like they really nailed the space theme, you know? It's got good vibes to it.
And there are a bunch of chains hanging from the walls.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What are these chains here? Of course, we see Leprechaun jumping from them back and forth.
Yeah, he's just swinging from these chains. Because, like, why... From a practical standpoint, in a waste disposal area, why do they just have chains hanging from the ceiling?
They really should.
Besides to look cool. It's just an aesthetic thing, honestly.
I mean, if I had a waste disposal full of eating bacteria, flesh-eating bacteria, I'd put some chains.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly. So yeah, Leprechaun swings in through here with a sword on the end of his cane. It's kind of like a multi-purpose. It's like a Swiss Army knife of canes. It's got lightsabers and knives. It's so nuts. Dude. But he cuts holes into one of the dudes, his suit. And then as they're trying to get out of the airlock, the one who's safe is dragging him out. He's like, I got him. Then he turns to him. Immediately, he's a full, like, rotted, flesh-eaten skeleton.
Which was so cool looking.
Yeah, I just wrote cool skeleton.
I want to see more of that. Like, it kind of gave me some hope. Like, it kept giving me just these little glints of hope.
Yet again, another use of practical effects that looks super cool, right?
Yeah.
And so we come up to we see these really crazy looking sculptures of like just like female bodies in weird positions.
Why?
I'm like, why are we going to talk about these? And oh, they're in that weird doctor's office. I'm like, oh, good, yeah, he's a pervert. We've established that much.
So they're all there. All the Marines are there to confront the scientist, which we now find out is the reason they're there. He hired them. Apparently, it doesn't make any sense because they took this woman and he's like, I needed her the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, they're like,
he's got these like plans in the making. I'm like, I can't tell if he's evil or not.
No.
Like he seems evil, but is he actually like an antagonist in this movie?
And so all the Marines are like, we're going to leave. We're out of here.
Yeah.
And then this like secret door opens at the end of the room
in the doctor's office that even he was not aware of. Literally the wall parts in the middle.
Yep. And what is his name?
Mittenhand
comes out, and you described this.
He does not walk out. He rolls out because what you find out is there's a reason for those terribly shitty camera angles on him. He is nothing but the top half of a torso, maybe like chest up, missing one arm, and then the rest of him is like this robotic, like wheeled cyborg thing.
Ugh, it actually, so gross.
His makeup was kind of intriguing. The robot plus the flesh look was actually kind of working for me.
I don't know.
It was very gross. I was uncomfortable looking at him.
Because like behind him, he had all these like jars, like he had a heart in a jar that was like pumping water.
That was really neat too because they didn't just show the front side of him. There were a couple of shots from behind him and you could see like the workings of like what made him work as a cyborg person.
I want to add that one of those jars definitely had more green jello in it. So
green goo, telling you. That's some ectoplasm or something. But yeah, I must imagine the prosthetic must have been very uncomfortable for him because he's an actor that has two arms.
Yeah.
So he must have been, anytime they shot a scene like that, must have been like him holding his arm behind him. And like, I can't imagine that was comfortable.
No, yeah.
But yeah, he starts getting angry when they're trying to disagree with him and he starts hitting his own like computer that's in front of him that he used to make himself function. And he starts malfunctioning a little bit.
Yeah,
like I can't tell if he's about to die. Like, how poorly constructed is this guy?
That was pretty bad.
It was very weird.
So then they start arguing about them helping or not. They're like, we're going to leave. And he's like, you can't leave. And then it literally, I wrote down that it's like Shark Tank because they're like, okay, I'll help you for 5% of all the gold revenue.
They start negotiating. It's like, they're like, 5% no bonus, 4% with bonus, 3% deal. Like,
It literally felt like an episode of Shark Tank about gold in a cave.
this is another horror movie where I feel like nobody here understands the stakes. Literally, people have died.
Yeah.
And you have absolutely nothing to stop this thing, right?
Nope.
But immediately they're like, all right, well, I'll take the money. Yeah, sure, I'll do this. I'm like, dude, do you not remember that dude just died? Hello? Do you remember?
It's hilarious. So then you cut back to the lepra boy, Wardick, and he's sitting there in the corner like watching this, but he's found the woman that he's gonna marry, and he says, I'll wed her, bed her, then bury her in one day.
Well, because he basically talks himself into sexism.
Yeah.
Because at first he's like, I'm going to make it out of here with my bride. And he's like, I'm going to share things with her. He's like, ugh, share is gross. I don't like that word. Yeah. And then he basically is like, okay, so never mind. What's going to happen is I'm just going to like do whatever I need with her and then kill her, right?
Yep.
So then
he says, I wonder if her father will pay for the wedding and the funeral. It's so dumb.
So yeah, then of course, like any great horror movie, and by great I mean terrible, they split up. So you got like two separate groups going on. I don't even remember like what. Basically, like they're all searching through the deck for the leprechaun. Yeah, exactly. There's a scene where the less than charming guy's trying to flirt with the girl again. They're trying to make us like him, right? I think they're trying to see how they connect. And there's a shot where she's walking up some stairs above him, and he deliberately, there's a shot established where he checks out her ass.
Yes.
I'm like, you are not helping me like this guy in the slightest. Please help me. I just want to like him. I want to have anything, right? The production level, again, kind of shocking me. The sets are decent. The effects in them are pretty dang good. I'm liking them.
Specifically in the building, let's clarify. Any effects that happen on people is very bad.
This excludes any use of CGI and any use of that crusty blanket cave.
But it was like a believable ship. There was exhaust coming out of the walls and the lights were pretty good.
But yeah, so Leprechaun is still trying to find the location of his bride. Yeah. And Derek made a funny comment. He says, someone tell him his princess is in another castle.
He's a little Mario boy.
Yeah. So there's a scene where the couple to be is they find the leprechaun, and the leprechaun like apparates these handcuffs that like handcuff him to this railing, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because he shoots the handcuffs to get himself out of there.
I watched it.
And then they escape.
I swear.
You can see the handcuffs are dangling off. They're just undone. They're not broken. Yep. They couldn't afford
it was too expensive.
2 handcuffs?
Yeah,
like,
it was
really?
too expensive.
It was so funny to me. I'm like,
they probably had to return them.
They borrowed them from a police officer. Like, you got to return these to me in good condition, right? And almost immediately after that, they have a standoff with the leprechaun. You see more of his cool powers. He's able to like shoot fire and sparks out of his fingers. Again, there are no rules to what this guy can and cannot do.
And then he says, as Shakespeare said, shit happens.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But immediately after that, suddenly this girl who has had no feelings for this less than charming man is like, oh, maybe you saved my life.
You saved my life.
Maybe I do like you.
I'm a damsel now.
So stupid. I hate it.
Shakespeare said the darndest things, though.
Yeah, so the leprechaun is just messing with some people. He kills more of them. But
he was chasing after the guy named Danny.
Yeah.
He's like, come here, Danny. And he starts singing Danny Boy to him.
Danny
it's an
Boy.
Irish song. It was great.
I love it. There's also like kind of like trails of this like there's songs in the scoring underneath. Like I think you noticed Greensleeves.
Yeah, Greensleeves was there.
In like a synth. It was kind of cool, right?
So
it's the only time I'd really noticed the music at this
So
point.
he drops a huge crate on one guy and says, "Oh, smashing, simply smashing."
Again, and what I loved is like I've discovered I do not love one-liners all the time, especially if the script is littered with them. But the fact that it's really just the leprechaun using them, it worked. I'm like, these lines are terrible and they're cheesy, but because you are the character you are, I'm loving all of it.
And like 90% of his dialogue was the one-liners.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was so great. And then he throws the girl off of a balcony and he starts peeling off of her fingers and she's holding onto a balcony with one finger.
Yeah, it's so stupid. He takes off, she's hanging by one hand, then he takes a pinky off, then the ring finger, then the middle finger. Yeah. I'm like, there's no way she's hanging off this ledge by one finger. Come on.
And then wee, all the way home. My voice for him is just so bad.
It's just wild. So while all of this is happening, we move back to the second plot in the movie that is happening. Again, we are with Mitten Hands and this doctor that really is obsessed with him. And Mitten Hands even tells him, he's like, I don't like you. I hate you. And he's like, it's an honor to be hated by such a great mind. You're a genius. And we basically discovered that the blood in this alien princess is good for regenerating body parts.
Yep.
And so Mitten Hands is trying to recreate himself a body because of some terrible experiment that happened where he was supposed to be like the first like organic computer was something that was supposed to happen. I guess. Very weird plot that was written. So again, strange. It's divulging so far from the Leprechaun plot that it is becoming its own separate movie about this like body horror science experiment gone wrong, right? It was very strange.
But they were drawing the blood out of her, and it just looked like blue raspberry Kool-Aid, blue raspberry DNA.
Yeah, there was a
not
moment.
Green, unfortunately.
There was a moment where the leprechaun gets stabbed, and there was green blood.
Oh yeah,
he had green blood.
Yay!
I got what I wanted. It was beautiful. And then, right after he like wheeze the girl off of the edge, they finally end up getting to the same room as him because he locked them out or something. And the girl shoots him, and with regular blasters they've been using, and he explodes again. They just love blowing up Warwick Davis.
Really
it's just so strange. And then he immediately comes back. He's like, oh, I'm fine. I was just messing with you guys.
It's just like this stupid growing out of his foot.
Yeah, and he leaves for some reason. They go find the girl that had fallen off a very high... She'd fallen from very far, and she just, like, has some blood trickling out of her. She's dying. She's like, you need to kill him. I'm like, dude, she would be a meat pile.
She would be dead.
If she had fallen from that far. And they're still so sure they're gonna get this guy. Yep. I don't understand why they're so confident when they are so incompetent.
Yeah.
They have yet to do anything to this leprechaun. He does not have a scratch on him.
No.
But they still think they can. It's so crazy. So we come back to the lab.
Yeah, dude.
They're working on getting the blood, trying to recreate the body, whatever. There is a normal-ass doorbell ding.
Bing bong.
It's so stupid.
It caught me off guard. I was like, oh, well, that wasn't my doorbell, but it definitely was.
Yeah, right. There have been space sound effects that seem like they've been ripped from other sci-fi movies and games, you know? So then there's just a normal doorbell. Then they go to check it. It's the main girl with the eyebrows, and she's naked.
Yeah.
And she's like, the leprechaun took all my clothes. You need to let me in. And the doctor's like, oh, of course, yeah. Just let me remove these security protocols real quick.
This guy's so horny.
He's so horny. And I think that's the only reason they established he's kind of like this gross guy. Yeah. Is so that he would willingly like let the defenses down in this lab that they're working in to let the leprechaun in, and immediately gets stabbed in the dick.
Yeah. Because of course,
cane again.
Because of course this woman was actually Warwick Davis leprechaun. It's pretending. You know? Which I was kind of excited because it showed her from like the back of her head, and it was like panning around, and I was so ready for it to be the leprechaun's face.
I wanted her to have the leprechaun prosthetic on her face so bad.
But it didn't.
In fact, it was worse than that because she turns directly to the camera and mouths these words while the leprechaun voice is coming out of her.
I don't even remember what he said. I was too mad. I was yelling at the screen.
I was very uncomfortable by it. But yeah, so then the leprechaun comes in there. The creepy doctor has been stabbed and he's kind of like wallowing around in his pain. Then he comes in to Mitten Hands. And he's just kind of having a conversation with him, trying to distract him while the doctor gets back up and tries to stab him through the back.
Yep.
And then he's like, oh, cool, we got him. He's like, oh, that's nice. Thanks for returning it, he says. Thanks for returning my knife to me. And he does this crazy thing where he uses like telepathy to move this platter that had like a bunch of like beakers and like green liquids all over it. And Derek, you want to tell me why this part was so funny?
Because we had rewinded it like 3 times to watch it. But there's the platter on the table, and immediately you see the wire that's attached to the table.
There's a wire on both sides.
On both sides.
You can see how it is being shaken.
Yeah. And then he picks it up and throws it, and you see the wire as it's dragging the pipe, the like tin through space.
You can see this string on this whole platter of death. So he shoots this platter to the creepy doctor's face, and you actually get a pretty wild practical effect where his face has been flattened like a cartoon character. Yep. It's suddenly in the shape of the platter. It was actually kind of bonkers.
It was great. It's probably one of my favorite deaths in the movie.
Yeah, so it was at this point that they had finished the DNA, like, serum thing that was going to make Mitten Hands grow his body back. So instead of killing Mitten Hands, he's like, no, we're going to mess with him. So they start pouring it into a blender, and he adds a tarantula and a scorpion to it, blends it up, and injects it in like the back of his head. It looks so bad. Like, they don't cut away. He puts this huge syringe and slowly goes further and further to the back of his head where you can't see it, and plunges it into him.
It's so obvious that he's just squeezing it behind his head.
Yeah, but I was like, oh, please, not a needle shot to the head. I really hated that.
But then it like had a prosthetic of him like with the needle in the back of his head.
Yeah, then he's like
bouncing
kind of
around.
seizing up with this needle shaking out of his head. The Marines finally make it into here. They start shooting him away. They go into another room.
Yep.
And they kind of just like forget about the Mitten Hands for a second.
Yep.
And I was like, something crazy is going to happen with him. I'm like, they're either going to have him turn into some kind of monstrosity or he's going to die. And I was really hoping he'd turn into some monster.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that. We were like, okay, is it going to be CGI or cool, gross prosthetic thing? And I
thought it was going to be practical. Derek thought it was definitely going to be CGI, right?
Mostly because the CGI had just been so shit so far.
Yeah. So they gear up to go into the room that they had run into, and then they find the princess in there who's like totally fine. She's like, oh, what's the problem? Is everything okay? And then Leprechaun shows up behind them, takes the Chrome Dome Sarge and like puts him under some kind of like mind control spell and covers him in dynamite. Yeah. So they're basically like, don't move. I got the buzzer here. And he's basically like, we're going to leave now. But before they leave, I still cannot wrap my head around this.
The strangest scene I've ever seen in a movie. The princess unbuckles her Princess Leia bra.
She says, this is your fate.
Yep. And then
just
pulls her
boobs out.
Yep.
And kind of talks to them about how they're gonna lose. I'm like, is this to distract them?
It was so weird.
I don't understand.
So long. It was like 2 minutes of her just walking back and forth.
It was the most unnecessary, stupidest reason to put boobs in a movie.
It was really funny, though.
They just should have not shown them at all. I was so mad about it.
But it was really funny because we were watching with subtitles, and the freaking subtitles were perfectly covering up her boobs.
The subtitles completely covered them.
The subtitles.
The sub-titties. It was so stupid. I hated it. And then after that scene happens, she basically buckles back up and leaves with the Leprechaun. And then the doctor lady, who seems to know a lot about these space people for some reason, says, oh, that's a death sentence. In their world, when a woman shows you her breasts, that is your death sentence. I'm like,
what a way to go.
That is the dumbest reason to put boobs in a movie. What is wrong with you?
I do feel so like weird. They had a boob quota. And they're like, how do we get boobs into this movie? Oh, I know. Just make this girl show her boobs.
Yeah, it's an alien thing. We'll write it later. I'm sure
we'll fix it in post.
It'll write itself, right? I'm sure it will. It's so dumb. So yeah, now Leprechaun is walking around with the sergeant here, who's basically like a walking, like a human Buzz Lightyear.
Yep.
He's walking around very robotic, doing all the army stuff he's supposed to do. Basically, just does as he's told. And then they put him in the club in drag.
Yep.
Which, like, different times, I guess, feels like I feel like we shouldn't be putting men in drag for a gag, you know?
No,
it should not be a comedy bit.
Which, it's interesting, I don't know if we're watching it now, so it's like, it's not funny. It wasn't funny to me, but I actually kind of liked the way that they embraced it in the movie, because the guys were like, well, you look great, but what's going on?
Yeah, really. They were not judging him. They're like, what are you, weirdo? Why are you dressed like a woman? They were actually being
they were like kind of cool with it, and I think they kind of liked it.
That was the first time I'd ever liked these Marine dudes. I'm like, oh, if he were to transition, would they be cool?
I think they would be cool with it. And
They'd
good for them.
Be cool. That's great.
Like morals
it's
in
like
Leprechaun
the one
4.
likable thing they've done in this movie.
It was great.
So then, while they're trying to figure that out, the Leprechaun basically leaves them with their now drag queened. I don't know how to describe it. He's dressed as a woman.
He looks great.
He looks fantastic. He is like kind of spazzing out to them, like out of his right mind. He's speaking in one voice as his man side and in one voice as like his woman side. It's a very weird bit that they do. While all of that is happening, we cut to the second movie that is completely a body horror, David Cronenberg, The Fly kind of looking thing.
It was
because
wild.
I got what I wanted. We got a nuts looking practical effects of Mittenberg, who had been mutated into this hybrid scorpion spider monstrosity.
I hated it so much.
It was disgusting.
It's so gross.
The practical effects are king in this. That's 100. Like, I was on board for this. He had this gigantic like fly eye that had these lights shining out of it.
like the Christmas lights that like change color behind his eye.
It was so crazy. But then he says, Mitten hands is gone. Mitten spiders. That's what he called himself. It was so crazy.
And then
I loved it. The practical effects were top notch.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This is where the budget went.
Really though, I'm like, the whole of the budget must have gone to the practical effects. And he was huge too. It was a gigantic thing. He had like one spider arm for one of his arms. The other one was like a regular human hand. He had the whole back half of him had like these huge legs that were... I was just blown away.
It was
by
great
this point.
for no
I was
reason.
not expecting it to go this direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, then they come back. They accidentally kill Chrome Dome Sarge dude because she makes him run his sword, his bayonet of his gun into a socket, and he gets shocked. And then they're like, "Oh, he was a cyborg."
He was a cyborg the whole time.
Dude, he had a chrome dome on his head. What do you mean? Why are you shocked that he was a cyborg?
I mean, I didn't expect, like, the chrome dome comes off and you, like, see a bunch of electronics in his head. I didn't really see that coming. Mm-hmm. But, like, I wouldn't say it was a good plot twist. It was just kind of like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So from here, the Leprechaun puts, he somehow, in the middle of a hallway, is able to set off the ship's self-destruct.
Yeah.
And he's like,
he's a tech wizard.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go find my gold, and the ship's gonna self-destruct. I put a force field around the only getaway ship on here, so they're not gonna be able to leave, right?
Yeah.
So now they split up because the only two surviving now is the couple to be and one other guy. They send the one guy to go to like the main like space station room, like the control panel, right, to try to turn off the self-destruct, which is where Mitten Spider has made his entire lair.
There are spider webs
Completely
everywhere.
covered in spider webs. It's gross. He gets got by Mitten Spider for a second, but doesn't die.
Yeah.
He's just like kind of in this like fleshy, spidery hammock right above the control panel.
I don't know why.
Where he's
It's so
cool.
weird.
He's like, I'm gonna turn the thing. I need the password. You guys gotta do something. And they're kind of having this fight in this like cargo bay with the Leprechaun as he's trying to find his gold.
And then he finds the gold. And we forgot to mention, they had like this shrink ray that would also expand things. So they were shrinking down the gold for
barely
transport.
used it all.
It was like a 2-second thing.
Yeah, so like they can shrink things and they can grow things. That's what we understand. We understand blue is shrink, red is grow.
Yeah.
So then the girl accidentally hits him with the red ray.
Hits the leprechaun with the red ray.
Hits the leprechaun with the red ray, and he grows.
Huge.
You get this terribly CG'd effect of him. Like, you can tell they just took him and made him bigger because his quality gets shittier as he grows.
It's like when you zoom in on a picture really, really close. It's like that same like grainy effect.
I am very into Big Leprechaun, but he looked like shit for that second. But then, any subsequent scenes, they built a mini set for him to walk around in.
It was so great. It was so cute.
Because then he looks fine any other shot after that, except like maybe one or two. But they built him a little mini cargo bay so that he could look big.
I loved it so much.
And it was so funny. And again, these Marines are so incompetent. They can't do anything right. And somehow the Leprechaun is more incompetent as a giant.
He's so dumb.
There are several sequences where he's trying to like grab the dude in his hand. You just see his hand go ooh and like phase through it. It's like, oh, I missed it again.
It's so obviously another shot superimposed over the top.
Yeah.
Like it's
So the main girl ends up escaping and is trying to find her way to the control panel. She's like getting pursued by Mitten Spider. And again, they are trying to find any excuse to take these actors' clothes off.
Literally.
Because earlier, the guy gets shot in the shoulder. He immediately takes off his armored vest, takes off his shirt.
Yep.
And you see, he doesn't have a wound.
Nope.
He just has blood on his shoulder.
And anytime you see him in a different shot, the blood is like different.
The continuity on that was terrible.
It was horrible.
But yeah, so as she's being pursued by Mitten Spider, he gets her pants. And now she is pantsless roaming around the space station.
Yep.
I'm like, again, so unnecessary.
So unnecessary.
Why is this happening? So she ends up getting to the one guy who was in his like flesh hammock above the control panel, and next to him is just a big old tub of liquid nitrogen.
Yep. For no reason. But it has a hose.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, of course. The solution to any problem in a space station is liquid nitrogen.
Yep.
So she hits Mitten Spider with that, and he's neutralized pretty instantly. He freezes, and
so
then they explode him.
Yep.
Which was actually a pretty cool looking effect.
It looked great.
It was great. I'm like, a lot of money must have gone into that shot to blow up the Mitten Spider like prosthetic. Loved the explosion.
Yeah, that was cool.
So yeah, then they're able to get the guy out of the airlock where it's just big Leprechaun in there.
Yep.
They open the airlock,
Yep.
and it's like a slow burn. He is slowly being sucked out of there. I'm like, my guys,
so long.
that's not how that works.
Nope.
He would immediately get sucked out of there if that's how you were going to do this. Like, it was just so dumb. It was so stupid. But then as he's out in space, he gets blown up. And I was pissed because when he explodes, they use the exact same shot of the mitten spider prosthetic blowing up.
It was the exact same.
And I remember because it was like burned into my corneas
Yep.
because I was like, that looked awesome. And it was the exact same thing. It flashes white and then they use that same explosion.
Yeah.
For him out in space.
They used the same prosthetics for his limbs every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time he died. I mean, I guess it's the same guy, but it's the same stupid foot and the same stupid hand every single time.
And it's such a lackluster ending because suddenly it's like, oh yeah, we saved the day. They look out the big bay window and there's his body parts floating in space, the giant ones. And there's another really shitty CGI, like imposed on the space thing, middle finger curled up because you gotta have it, right? And then they all have some shitty one-liners themselves about like, oh, he really blew up out there or something. He really fell apart. Some terrible lines. I can't even remember what it was.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of ends.
Yep. They are able to stop the self-destruct sequence.
Yes, like last minute.
They're trying to figure out the password. It's so dumb. And they're like, well, this guy, he was like the Wizard of Oz. So obviously it was Wizard.
Because he referred to himself as Wizard. And the font they used on the screen to put in the password looked like Comic Sans. It was terrible.
Everything else was cool. And then it was just
Hated it.
Comic Sans. But yeah, that was the movie.
But yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, so it's just over now. There's not like, we made it home. There's no kind of like sneak peek into like what's going to happen after this, no more lore, nothing. It's just like, oh, there he goes. He gave us the middle finger. We gave her one lines. It fades away. It was the kind of ending where it's like, I'm not sure if that's the ending or not because the credits haven't rolled yet. Is it going to be another scene? And then the credits rolled. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's over now.
Sure, it's over now.
It's
yeah.
all over now.
So yeah, that was that movie. You want to talk about where your expectations ended up?
Yeah.
Were any of them met? Were you surprised?
So my first expectation, Warwick kicking ass, right? And yeah, he did. And it was incredible.
Absolutely.
Warwick Davis for life. Weird Way to Get to Space was thwarted immediately.
Yeah.
Because he was in space already.
He was just there.
Kills. There were definitely some kills, but they were kind of just tame.
None of them were very exciting, huh?
The skeleton was the most exciting thing, or like him getting his face smashed. And then no one said, Lepre, can't you see we're in space?
Just a missed
No
opportunity.
one said it, and I'm upset about it.
So many chances.
The one-liners made up for it.
The one-liners did, and they worked. They were great.
They were so good. What about you?
So for me, so what did I have for expectations? I had regret, right? And I was like, didn't regret it. Actually had a pretty good time. Actually, no regrets.
Yeah.
Warwick Davis was the saving grace of this movie. It would be terrible. Like, it would just be unwatchable without him and his charm and the way he is. He played such a great character.
Yep.
I didn't really know why they felt the need to do it in space. Maybe it's just because of the success of space movies, but they made it work.
Yeah, it was fine.
There were other dumb things to worry about that were weaker than the fact that this movie played in space. And maybe it's just because I hadn't seen the other movies beforehand, but it being in space worked out. Really wasn't my biggest gripe about this movie, honestly. I got green blood.
You got green
a couple
blood.
times. It was wonderful. There was also a sequence that I forgot to mention where the leprechaun is antagonizing them and he puts himself on the TV on this safety ad. He puts himself in a little construction hat. It's make sure to watch out for sharp objects, and he cuts his own fingers off, which was pretty funny. He had green blood spurting out of that. It was wonderful. I left with about the same amount of fear of leprechauns in space, which is minimal or none.
Me personally, I'm kind of scared that the next time I get an erection, it's going to be
turn into a leprechaun. Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of boners now.
Yeah, okay, no more for me. Never again.
Never again. Celibate.
The CGI was absolute trash, but the practical effects were up there. They were very good.
Surprisingly
good.
Very Cronenberg-esque. I loved it.
So that was one of my surprises where I'm like, the practical effects are way better than I ever could have guessed. It really makes me want to see the other Leprechaun movies to see if any of them have any kind of really cool practical effects that could live up at all. Another surprise is the shitty one-liners were all held pretty much exclusively by the Leprechaun, and that worked really well because it fit the tricksy, annoying character, right? It worked so well. I was surprised by being in space actually worked. They made it work really well. And then I was actually, I gotta say, I'm shocked at how low the rating is. I don't think it deserves a great rating, but I'm like, this is kind of low for the movie I experienced, in all honesty.
Compared to, like, the other ratings we've been dealing with, I think that this one should have been, like, more of a 30.
Yeah, this is the first time I've actually had a movie where I'm like, I actually disagree with how low this is right now, from both the critic standpoint and the audience standpoint.
Yep.
So where did you land on your verdict?
Dude, this is horrible for me.
Yeah.
Horrorble.
I really like without a doubt, I wrote that almost instantly. Like, exclamation mark like that was horrible. Really good. Like, tells a good horror story. In a way where, like, it kind of diverged from itself. Again, you got the weird body horror of Mitten Spider, which I wish we'd talked more about because it was so fantastic. You just have to look at the design.
There wasn't that much of it, unfortunately.
I know, but it was so great. And, like, it was cool. A good horror movie, great character, very iconic stuff. And, like, it told a good story, you know?
For sure.
Had its problems, but yeah, I thought it was a horrible time.
I feel like this is one of those movies that's, like, kind of the reason we made this podcast, right? Because we're discovering movies that are bad, and, like, this is not a good movie by any stretch of the word.
It still deserves to be on this lower ranking status.
But I would probably watch it again one day.
Yeah,
I probably won't, but I would
recommend it to someone if they were considering it, or they wanted, like, some weird fun, St. Patrick's Day themed thing. Yeah. I could recommend this to them because it's a pretty fun time. I can't say that for any of the rest of them. I don't know. We might have picked the best of the
An
bunch.
American Werewolf in...
No, I mean, like, the Leprechaun movies.
I know, but I want to watch that again.
Oh, you can watch it alone.
Give me some trivia.
I'll tell you some trivia. Okay, so I'll read this one here. So it says, according to Dave Trippett, the executive in charge of production for the first 3 movies, this film originally started as a spoof of Apollo 13 from 1995. And a senior Trimark executive saw the promo art for Apollo 13 and immediately had artwork done up replacing Tom Hanks' face on the poster with the Leprechaun's face.
Oh, what?
And that is what started...
Is that this poster that I'm looking at right now?
That is what started the script work for this movie.
That's
literally
incredible.
Because they wanted to make a spoof of Apollo 13 and just took Tom Hanks' face out of it and put the Leprechaun in. It was so crazy. This actually shocked me. I didn't notice this throughout the movie, but it's true. The title character is never once in the film referred to as a leprechaun. They never call him that.
They don't, do they?
Yeah, no, literally
never do.
Leper never. He is only called alien, monster, bastard, or some combination thereof, right?
Monster bastard alien.
Monster bastard alien. Bastard alien.
Monster bastard alien.
The sound of the doors opening and closing were taken directly from the original Doom video game.
I freaking knew it!
Where it was the sound of the elevators in that game.
I knew it. That sound was familiar.
They literally directly ripped it from that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did find out the film takes place in the year 2096.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. The budget for the CGI, $80,000.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
All of this makes sense to me. I get it all. So they probably had an intern who was going through college do that CGI and like, here, have 80 grand.
Yeah, it looked bad CGI, but a great time. I really enjoyed this movie. I liked the Leprechaun character a lot. I really thought I was going to dislike him. I thought he was going to annoy me, but he did to the right degree. It worked so well for him.
It was good.
Yeah, so really great time. A good. Horrorble movie. Well deserving of the title, I think, in all honesty.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this little St. Patrick's Day special.
Yes, have a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day.
Stay safe out there.
Go watch a Leprechaun movie maybe if you feel so inclined after listening to this.
It's funny, when we got finished watching, I got a notification that Sci-Fi is doing a marathon all day.
Well, you know what I'll be doing on St. Patrick's Day. No, you can't,
because we have to do it for the podcast.
You're right. I'll save those for future reference just for you guys.
Boy. All right, well, have a horrible
St. Patrick's Day.
Goodbye.